Brian, how are you?
Keeping well, man. Keeping well. How you doing?
Great, yeah. Another good week in the bag.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Always
Yeah.
good. And I tell you, do you know what I'm finding fascinating about this, Brian? I know we're doing this a few years,
Mm.
but I think we mentioned this before as well. But really digging deep on this and really naming what we're going to be accountable for and naming the priorities, it's just given me a lot more I don't know. It's just made it more visible of what I'm
Mm.
doing. It's just the accountability really,
Mm.
really, really works. And it's like writing it down, getting it
Yeah.
there, having somebody that you're going to be accountable to
Hmm.
tell about the problems. It just creates this psychological way of thinking where you're just
Hmm.
biased towards taking action, which is something we're going to be touching on today.
Yeah, I agree, man. And like, I just spent a few minutes there trying to come up with my priorities for this week, the three priorities. And like, I had to take a little bit of time on it. Like, it was kind of hard to nail it down. What are the three priorities? How can I need to get something tangible here I can actually achieve in a week. So
Yeah.
it kind of helps with that kind of focusing in on that. Like, it took me a bit of time to actually figure it out. I'm still on 100%, to be honest with you. I'll tell
Yeah.
you in 20 minutes or 25 minutes if I've got it or not.
It's crazy, and I think where this is particularly useful as well. We've chatted about this before. Like a lot of the things, if you're starting a new business, you're working on strategy, you're working on brand, you're working on your business plan, you're working on long-term customers, short-term customers. You can't act on them each week, so there's
Mm.
a lot of moving parts, a lot of balls in the air that you're trying to juggle at the same time. So I think by having someone accountable for that, it makes you remember you're measuring it and you're managing it that bit better. And like yourself, this week there was an online corporate course that I'm doing at the moment, and I was thinking of my third thing. What's my third thing? And I said, "Oh my God, I'm nearly forgetting about that. I have to get this done for Friday,
Mhm.
so to have it ready." So it was really interesting. It just gave me the plug, which I wrote, or the TQ, which I wrote on my hand there, just to make sure. So it just triggers you to remember these things as well. It's great.
Absolutely, yeah. And so, speaking of accountability, how did you get on against your three priorities this week?
Yeah, so something that I'm going to be touching on today, we're going to be talking about 6 characteristics
Mhm.
of an entrepreneurial mindset, and something I recognize that's really important in the topic that we're talking about today is this ability to be flexible. I'm not going to talk about emotional agility. I'm going to be talking
Mhm.
about today as one of the characteristics. But of the three things last week I had to get done, strategy was one of them. So I'm working on my brand and my new website I want to get done, but I've been told that strategy comes first. So that I need to have my strategy before I know what I want, before I implement what I want to get the message across that I want people to know. So I need to know that first. And I find it interesting how these things interact, because I'm going to be talking about mentorship today as well. So I met a really good mentor of mine yesterday, and he was sort of saying, beware of what's the saying,
Silver bullets.
silver tongue there, or thing, yeah. And
Hmm.
people, how salespeople, how they talk and stuff
Oh
like
yeah.
that, because they might promise a lot, but they mightn't deliver.
Mm.
So it's someone's promising on their strategy. So I was talking to him about strategy as well. So it's an ongoing process for me. So I've definitely moved the needle on strategy, but it's an ongoing process. And maybe I don't need my strategy. Maybe I need to let that organically develop in time as well. So that was interesting. Definitely moved the needle on that. The second one was my online course, and that is, it's not ready to sell right now, but it's all over the line, and it will be ready to sell next Monday. So
Mhm.
just for anyone listening, I might as well give a plug here. It's called The
Mhm.
Psychology and Neuroscience of Manifesting. So we've actually built affiliates into that as well. We've some incredible affiliates like Georgie Crawford's going to be an affiliate for us. And with Sheila Shogi is going to be an affiliate as well. I'm going to be on the Jennifer Zamparelli show talking about that
Oh
as
yeah.
well. So I think we should do a chat on that
Class.
sometimes as well. We're
Yeah.
on affiliates and stuff. So
Oh
that
yeah.
course is ready, will be ready to go for Monday up on my website. And then the third thing that I needed to get done or started on was my business plan. And it really hooks into strategy as well. So I made a
Mhm.
start on that. And got a good chunk of that, but that's going to be ongoing for the next while. So I would say I ticked 3 boxes, but I only slightly ticked 2 of them.
Well, that's not bad. That's pretty
Not
good
bad.
going. Yeah, that's
Not
pretty
bad
good.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, so I had the three I had a big contract I was trying to get over the line. So that's done and dusted. That's signed. So that's a
Super.
big kind of bulk amount of students, if you like, going onto one of my online courses. So delighted with that. I agreed dates with Tangent for the upcoming master classes. So that's from 2022. So from the end of this year all the way through to kind of mid 2022. So I've got dates in the diaries for that. So that's
Lovely.
fantastic. all kind of workplace well-being related
Yeah.
master classes in Tangent in Trinity.
Lovely.
And the third thing I had, and I didn't get this over the line, was the Parkit insurance policy. So it was insurance for the community leader program that we're developing. So, and I'm okay about this because this, as soon as I kind of, had it down as a target, if you like, I realized, well, look, we actually need to spend a little bit more time on this, go through the insurance policy, the wording, the finer details. So it's not something you can really rush. So I'm okay that I didn't hit that this week. And even if it's not next week, I'm okay with that too. So it's not the type of thing maybe to put down for as a target, if you like. It's more important to take time to make sure it's set up properly and it does exactly what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. And it's even interesting in that as well. It's like it's a target, but maybe to help you to get more specific with that. So I'm thinking with my business plan, that could be a target for the next 10 weeks for me, or next 3 weeks, I'd say anyway. So maybe I'll target to get 20% of that done, or get more specific on the target of that, if that's possible as well. Could be a way of doing that, just to make the goals more realistic.
Exactly. Yeah, maybe you can break that down rather than your business plan. Maybe it's a section of the business plan.
Yeah. Definitely a SWOT analysis is a big part of it that I'm going to be working on this week, so I can really focus in on that. Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So that's our kind of last week and how we got on over the last week. So this week we said we're going to talk about the 6 characteristics of an entrepreneurial mindset, or at least the characteristics that have helped us the most get started and grow and sustain what we're doing. So what do you want to, like, we very briefly spoke about what we have. We've each come up with 3 each, if you like. And I think there's quite a bit of overlap with, not unsurprisingly, with what we've come up with.
Yeah, and I love the synergy, the overlap, but it's more of a synergy within it as well. Like where you picked consistency, Brian, I picked persistence, and it's like consistent persistence, like that way. So it's really interesting as well, and we've different takes on it that we both align to as well. When we first met up, we called our group Pure Hustle, so we are hustling, and that hustle culture, which can be brilliant, but it can also be dangerous as well. See, that hustle with care. But for me, a big part of the hustle was boldly reaching out. So whereas you're going to talk about hustle, I'll talk about boldly reaching out, and then I think more inner stuff, like that your inner world, looking after your inner self. Like, so we're going to talk about emotional regulation, and then the habit that you picked, which is my non-negotiable for life and work as well, as exercise. So really keen to talk about these 6 traits and see how they interact with each other as we discuss them.
Cool. So let's step through them then. So so number 1 for me, without a doubt, was consistency. Just being consistent in everything I do, from a business perspective, or even from an exercise perspective, from a family perspective, everything to do with that. And I think it started, I learned the lesson early on when I think I've mentioned this before. I blogged, when I had a blog before I had a business. It's called Office Worker Health. And I was really kind of dipping my toe in the water. I was still working in the corporate world. And I thought, I'll start blogging and I'll learn about this whole area. So I blogged consistently. I released a blog every Wednesday for 4 years. Never missed a Wednesday. And it felt at the time that I hadn't gained any traction. I was still getting the same amount of visitors, maybe that I was in year 1 kind of thing, to the website. But I learned so much from that consistent effort. I mean, I was reading and researching what I was going to write about every single week. So I was learning as I went. I was learning about even the social media, the blogging, how to promote a blog, all this kind of stuff. So great learnings for starters, plus just learning that habit of consistency, being consistent, having a routine about everything that I was doing. And then, lo and behold, when I did decide to go full-time, set up a community, organize an event, over 100 people turned up at that first event. People who were kind of, maybe I didn't even know, were reading the articles, this kind of idea. So there was definitely something to that consistency. It just taught me a lot from day one. And I've continued with that ever since. Just a consistent work routine, a consistent exercise routine, just every single thing I do. And I think it leads to, you get the name for being reliable in what you do. If people know that you're consistent week in, week out, whether now it's with the podcasts, with webinars, with this weekly session, then as well as being consistent with it, you just get that reputation for being reliable for what you do. So an awful lot to be said for consistency.
Yeah, oh, big time. There's so much in that, Brian. Like you could talk about this thing for hours, and it's like consistency builds trust. Like that's the one thing that I realized. I remember in my past life, I suppose I would have seen consistency as sort, and I think younger people might see it as not spontaneous. It's reliable. It's old fashioned. It's not sexy. It's not
Yeah.
cool. But consistency is where it's at. It's around trust. And like, what is trust? I love Simon Sinek's take on trust. Which value should be a verb. So don't do trust. Do things in a consistent manner. Could be the verb of trust, so people know what to expect. And I think it's absolutely critical. It really, really is. There's the one that I picked. I could have easily picked consistency because for me it's just such a crucial trait. Like intensity can be beneficial in some contexts, but consistency always wins the day. And for me, an antonym is a synonym of consistency is really persistence. But I think the idea around persistence is around like to persistently keep going, have that consistency, but be persistent despite the knocks that come your way. Right. So it's even to have this bias towards action, and I think that's something I've developed over time as well. It's that I'll always act, I consistently take action, and if you are persistent in the actions that you take and you develop this bias towards action, you're always going to be busy, you're always going to be doing things, and that sort of links up. You can sort of think that could be too much of the hustle kind of culture where you're just doing things randomly, but I think this focused persistence is really, really key. And you've got to know what you're doing. So you have to know what your goals are, know what your values are of the business, know what direction you are actually heading in. And if you develop a bias towards action and you're persistent and you're consistent based on those fundamental targets that you want to reach, you're going to reach your goal. It's just a law of nature, pretty much. So the persistence thing I think is really critical as well, because like we've talked about on the accountability habit, like a lot of the plans we have for each week, things get in the way. So you've got to be consistently working, but you've got to be persistent in the face of adversity, be persistent in the face of the struggles that come along. And it's really interesting how a lot of the traits we're talking about really interlink, because we're going to be talking about emotion regulation, which is an ability to regulate challenging emotions, to not get angry, to not get upset when things don't go your way. So stay persistent, stay consistent in your actions, and I think it's a core fundamental trait of an entrepreneur. It really is.
Absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned that focus. Like I've got a quote down here. Well, at least I thought it was a quote I heard from Phil Knight, but he was the head of Nike, and he had this line. At least I thought he had this line around ferocious focus.
Love it.
And what you're doing for ferocious consistency. And I actually Googled it before coming on here. It's not his quote at all. In fact, I can't find the quote anywhere, so I don't know. I might have to put my name down for this one. Like, but ferocious focus on what it is that you're doing. Yeah. And it's having that focus and being consistent with it then over time. And it might feel like you're pushing that boulder up the hill, but if you are consistent over time, you'll get to the top of that hill, and things just start to pick up then over time. Like that 4 years for me with the blog felt like I was still pushing that boulder even on the fourth year, but then all of a sudden I hit the top there. And look, it's still a struggle. You're still pushing some kind of a boulder in some shape or form, but being consistent absolutely leads to results over time.
Yeah, and you know, I think that what's really important, what you said, Brian, I was thinking that when you said it, and it left me mind. It's this idea of you don't know who's actually watching in the background as well. And I think LinkedIn is really, I find people on LinkedIn say, I was following you for years, but you don't see likes, you don't see comments, you don't see anything like that. And it's that consistency. When they see you showing up over and over and over again, you build that reputation. And it's like, I love the idea of the boulder up the hill. You're always pushing that boulder up the hill. And consistency is always, you've got to stay consistent. You've got to be persistent. You've got to keep pushing. You've got to always put the work in. But there's a flip side of that as well, that it's like when the boulder sort of gets, you're never going to reach the top of the hill. And I often use the metaphor, it's like a snowball rolling down a hill. And when you stay consistent and persistent, it builds up more snow and it gains momentum. And all of a sudden you pick up this momentum because you have people following you. You've reached out and talked to other people. You've developed capital. Like you learn, like for yourself and myself as well. I learned how to write from blog, and I learned how to communicate. I learned how to market, and everything I do now, I draw on that capital that I gained over time. So it's not like consistency sort of, it just compounds over time, and it's so powerful. So powerful.
Success breeds success.
Yeah.
So like you learn from it, you move on, you've got experience. If it's in a business sense, maybe you get a testimonial from whatever it is that you've done, and it's a company, it's an individual, whoever it is you've worked with. People all of a sudden maybe want to work with you because you've worked with this person, this company, or you've established trust, whatever it is. So yeah, it's success breeds success.
Yeah. And you know what? That remind me, it's biblical. It's actually biblical, right? So there's a thing called in psychology or in philosophy called the Macho Effect, and it's about Matthew the apostle. And the Macho Effect basically means that in one context, the richer get richer, the poorer get poorer. That's one way of looking at it. The smarter get smarter, the less smart get less smart in a way as well. But it's this idea of compounding over time. So the more you learn, the easier it is to learn new things because you're putting all of these different ideas together. So it's the Macho Effect is, and I think it's like beautiful looking people get things easy. It's like the more beautiful you are, the better you get. I think it was talked about in that context. So it's just you got to own that. Whatever you look like, you got to own that.
The Matthew Effect. So compound interest.
Compound interest, yeah. Linking biblical stuff with accounts, you know?
Yeah, very good. Going from the biblical then to my second one I have, and again we've kind of touched on it already, but my second one was hustle. And I thought long and hard about, like, should I use the word hustle? I think there's a bit of a recently there's a bit more of a negative connotation with the word hustle, isn't there? So for me, hustle, it's not hustle per se. It's just proactive. It's proactive reaching out. I'll tell you how it kind of started for me when I was initially building community. I'm going back a good few years now on LinkedIn, which is where my target audience hang out, the HR professionals, the workplace wellbeing leaders, and service providers. So they're pretty much on LinkedIn. But I'm at a place now where I've got 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. But how that started was, it was initial a reach out on LinkedIn, if you like, but it wasn't just one of these kind of empty, cold connection requests with no note. It wasn't even a note just saying, "Hi, let's connect." I was building a community, so I had some value to offer. So I introduced myself, said, "Look, I've got this. Given your role, you might be interested in this. I've got this free community where we've got podcasts, webinars. There's a forum to ask questions. It's totally free. If you'd like to get on the mail list, here's what you do," and leave it at that. And some people, a lot of people came back. Some didn't, of course, and that's absolutely fine. But I was reaching out. I was offering some value to people on LinkedIn, to my target audience, mainly the HR professionals of this world, and offering them some value to join the community. And there's no sell. There's absolutely no hard sell whatsoever. And over time, of course, if those people who join up, who kind of join the community, if they see kind of value building up over time, well, I'm probably building up trust and authority in the group over time. Maybe 2 years time, maybe 3 years time, they might see an opportunity where they actually need something, and they need something in the workplace well-being space. Well, who are they going to approach? There's a good chance it could be me who they approach when they're looking to buy something. So that's how I did it, and that's worked really well for me. And that was the hustle for me. So, a very kind of proactive, kind of positive approach to it. And that's how I certainly got started in building up the community, building up the profile.
Yeah, I love that, Brian, and it's really how we were brought together. We were brought together by hustling with each other. I was chatting to somebody in a company, and they says you should reach out to Brian McKeown. He started doing, or Brian Crook. He started reaching out. He's doing stuff that you're doing. I think he's about to get on, and she obviously recognised the similar hustle mentality in us as well, And I mentioned just Brian McKeown in there. So a big part of the hustle for me was about reaching out to people and asking for help. And in 2017, I basically cold emailed some of the biggest business leaders in Ireland. I've they're in my book, so it's okay for me to say it publicly, but Carolyn Lennon and Herity would be two people. Alison, I forget forgetting the names.
Alison Cowser, is it?
Alison, I was thinking of another Alison, but Alison Cowser was another person I reached out to. Well, Alison's amazing, actually. Alison Keaton, I was going to say, but I didn't reach out to. I reached out to Alison in a psychological context. That was actually a little bit different. Not for me. It was more the interview thing in that line of interviews. But Bernard Bourne, he was the CEO of AIB, was one at the time. He brought me in and got me to do a talk in AIB, launched me speaking career. So my speaking career was launched on the back of reaching out and interviewing people and asking them for help.
Now, hold on. I think I know this story, right? But tell the viewers the story. Like, how did you, when you say cold email, like it wasn't any old cold email.
It wasn't any old cold email.
Interesting, kind of detailed email.
Yes, it's on my website if anyone wants to check it out. It's how I landed in interviews with the most influential people in Ireland. But I call it taking a punt. And I basically told them my story. And I basically says, right, I'm in this position. I'm reaching out and trying to help other people. I'd like to learn the tools that helped you along the path. So I done a retrospective analysis of that email. It was really interesting as well. And I sort of used emotion stories unwittingly. I didn't even realize I was doing it. I invoked emotion. It's sort of I can't remember the other elements of it as well, but I really appealed to their curiosity as well. They were sort of interested in hearing who's this addict
you need to capture people's attention.
Captured people's attention. It was really interesting. But one person that I got an interview with was Brian McKiernan, who was the former CEO of Davy Group. And Brian has been instrumental. He just gives me his time. He's incredible, giving me his time. In terms of helped me towards keeping my focus on my PhD. And the meeting I had with him yesterday, make your focus the number one thing, know what you are actually doing. But he's just really helped in that context as well. He helped me to reach out to other people as well. And it's just sort of like people are nicer than you think if you give them half the chance. And it's by reaching out to these people, they've connected with me with other people, they've given me opportunities to speak in their companies, they give me advice on an ongoing basis, helping me with my own business and stuff like that as well. Like Brian very kindly says I can send him a business plan that I'm working on, and he's going to give me feedback on it. And this is just out of niceness of them because I reached out.
That's huge,
not many people reach out. And it's funny, I didn't say it to yourself, Brian, there either, but I got a notion in my head there the other day. I'd love to go on the Tommy Tiernan show. So I got onto RTA, wrote the producer, hustled, got the producer's name through someone else, and I got an email back off them yesterday to say we'll be in touch.
No way.
I don't know. Now, nothing mightn't come of it. Like, she could have been just being nice. I don't know.
That would be class.
That would be class. That would be class.
There's some positive hustle there, some positive reaching out.
Yeah,
that's class. But one thing, so you said people are nicer than you think. They're also busier than you think.
Yes.
So you do need to capture them and their attention in some way. And if I could give any bit of advice to anyone listening in, is don't send a note describing how brilliant you are. Capture the person you're emailing or contacting, their attention, and tell them how you can make their life better. They don't know you. They don't know anything about you. They don't care about your master's or your PhD or all your experience. They really don't. But if you can make their life a little bit easier, or if you've got an interesting story to tell, some way to capture them, that's the way to go about it. And look, you can put a note at the bottom with your credentials and stuff, but up front load it with what are you going to do for them to make their life better or more interesting?
Yeah, or something from Dale Carnegie's book is great. Appeal to their more nobler motives.
Right, okay.
It's a good way in.
Excellent,
yeah. But it's here I'm just looking at the time here, Brian. We better get on if we because we're keeping our record. We're always on time.
We're doing okay. So
we're doing good.
That's good. We've 2 down each. The third and final one for me is my characteristic, or something that just has helped me in a business context, growing the business, is exercise. So probably not the first thing a lot of people would think of, but for me, this is crucial. So I know I have got a workplace well-being business. So there's certainly part of it is practicing what I preach, but I'd say that the main part is just this works for me. I need this in my day. This helps me have a better, more productive day, especially when I exercise in the morning, if I get up early and doing gym work 3 or 4 times a week. But the week is peppered then with walking, with stretches, whatever it might be. I need that in my week, in my day, to be more productive. And there's lots of research on this, and getting my exercise in, it helps me focus later in the day. It's just something that really works for me and that I need in my week. And going back to my very first point, it links in very nicely. I'm not lifting any heavy weights. I'm not running marathons or doing triathlons or anything like that. I'm just consistent with my exercise habit. It's 3 or 4 times a week. It's lots of movement, lots of steps as well throughout the day. It's the consistency over time that I've been building up, and I will continue to build up. That's what works for me. So consistency, in business and consistency in exercise. That's what really works for me.
Yeah, I love it, Brian, as well. It's even a couple of our meetings. We had walking meetings as well, getting those steps in, just implementing it where you can and staying consistent with that. And exercise for me, I always say it's my non-negotiable. It's the one thing that it's a cornerstone habit that helps all the other things. But I think the one biggest thing it helps with me, and the characteristic that the last one I want to talk about, is emotional regulation or emotional non-reactivity. Because if you're starting a business and you need to have that entrepreneurial mindset, like you see with the stuff we talk about every week, there's challenges, there's pivots, different things happen, and you're going to get critique, you're going to have problems, you're going to run into problems, and that's going to cause anger, it's going to cause frustration, it's going to cause fear. So an ability to regulate your emotions is absolutely critical. Now, there's a couple of things that I do to regulate my emotions. I'm not going to go into detail, but meditation is one, specifically self-observation. I'm always looking internally at my bodily sensations, my inner world, how I'm reacting, my feelings and my thoughts. Always have a look inwardly in to see that. And exercise is just the number one thing. Exercise just is absolutely it helps your energy in a positive way, but stops that, gets rid of that negative energy that causes you to be reactive. And to interlink these things as well, like it's crucial to be consistent with that and to be persistent with your work, whatever your self-care regimen is, to work on emotional reactivity, whether it be exercise or whatever it is, meditation. But it's even interesting that boldly reaching out to others helps me too, because another one of my mentors who I've mentioned on the show before is Mick Slane. He was the founder of Robus, and him and Brian, both friends who introduced each other so they could introduce me, both exercise as well. It's interesting, just sort of putting that together. But they're both about critical feedback, that you need to get critical feedback to grow. And if you're getting critical feedback of something you're doing wrong and you're not growing and you're worried because of that, you're going to be in trouble if you're getting angry and you're getting frustrated. And I give you an example of that. Mick, only an hour before the show, gave me feedback on my latest video, and he says, I know you love candor, but I won't say the words he actually used. He just gave it a rating, and I'm like, beautiful, I love this. I'm dying to get on to Mick so he can tell me where I went wrong. So I didn't react emotionally and say, oh my God, he's criticizing me, because I know he has my best interests at heart. He always has my best interests at heart. He's always trying to help me there. So I know that is good stuff that he's given me, and I want to grow around that as well. So I think whatever it is an ability to regulate your emotions is critical. And I'd say exercise is make that a priority, and you won't go far wrong.
Absolutely, yeah. And exercise, like, it's often underrated, I think, but it's of course it's physical activity, looking after your physical well-being, but also your mental well-being as well. Especially if you're getting outdoors, if you're getting outside, you're taking a break from work, which I think is equally as important as working, because you get more done, I find, when you've taken a break. And if that's exercise, then even better.
Yeah, and all the science backs this up as well, Brian. Like, from a neuroscientific perspective, you're releasing endorphins, you're helping the dopamine systems work. Like, it's the science really highlights how powerful this is. But because it's so simple, go out and exercise, people tend to dismiss it. But and all of very highly successful people, whatever field they're in, I know as many of them exercise regularly. It's core.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, like, probably some of the busiest people on the planet there you're talking about. And like, not in that league, but like, I have 2 young kids, a 6-month-old, but exercise goes in there. It's just part. It's a really important meeting.
Yeah.
That doesn't shift. Look, the odd time I miss it, but I'll always make up for it later in the week.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those, as you say, non-negotiables.
Yeah, definitely.
So we finish up here with our
3 for next week. Yeah.
Yeah. What about yourself? What are you going to aim for?
So for myself, right, so the business plan, do more of the business plan. I am going to aim for about 30% of that. I have to look into that now. So this is something I learned this week. I need to get more focused. So 30% of the business plan. I'm creating a module that I want to bring to the corporate environment. It's about performance enhancement. So that's what I was chatting to a couple of my mentors this week about. So I want to get that finished. 100% finished and ready to go by next week. And then I'm developing a corporate course then as well, and that's nearly there, and I want to get that finished as well. So they're my 3 big goals for next week.
Very good. Yeah. Okay, my 3 are, I've got a big launch coming up, a relaunch, if you like, of my main online course. So I need to get some videos done for that this week. It has to be this week, or I'm going to miss the launch date, which is October 21st. So I have to get them done. I enrolled 25 new students on a couple of courses this week. So I want to check in with them, just see how they're getting on. It's not something want to focus on that on the the quality of the course and their experience. I want to get in week 1. I want to focus in on those guys this week. And yeah, and we're doing a parquet trial at the Dublin Airport Authority this week. So we had one yesterday and we got one tomorrow. I'm going to kind of follow up on that and get feedback on that. So that's Parquet, the social enterprise, kind of bringing it to a workplace, if you like. Lovely space out in Dublin Airport, kind of brand new Dublin Airport Central. So I want to kind of get some feedback on that and hopefully build on that and get out to more workplaces over the coming weeks and months.
Excellent, man. Excellent. Lovely stuff. So that's us for this week, I think.
That's us done. Yeah, listen, thanks everyone for joining, and we'll be in touch. We'll let everyone know what the focus is, the ferocious focus is for next week. We'll see you at 12:30, same time next week.
Thanks a lot, Brian. Toss down.
Brian, good luck.